There are thousands and thousands of artists out there trying to make a living by selling their art, and most of them are struggling. And most of them are struggling because they're following a piece of advice that I hear over and over again that's come to be accepted as kind of universal wisdom. And I think it's actually the worst thing that they could be doing right now. Now, what is that? They're being told to treat their art like a business. And I'm sure you've heard this before. And let me tell you, for most of you, treating your art like a business at this stage of your career is actually the very worst thing you could be doing. Stick around for this video. I'll explain why. I'll tell you what I think you should be doing instead. So, treating your art like a business, what does that mean? Well, I see a lot of artists out there. They're hustling like crazy. They're doing tons and tons of art festivals. They've invested in a fancy website. They're posting like mad on social media. They've got a fancy artist statement. Maybe they've invested a lot of money in a fancy display for their tent or their booth. And yet, they're not getting any sales. Why? Well, because they've overlooked the very first rule of business, and that is that you have to, at the start, have a viable product, right? We've all heard that if you could create a better mousetrap, you could make millions of dollars. But no one's ever said if you can create a mediocre mousetrap that's kind of the same as all the others, and you invest a ton of marketing into it, that you're going to make $1 million. And that's in effect what most artists are doing. They're producing work that's pretty good, that's pretty much the same as most of the other artists that are out there in terms of the desirability from the client's point of view. And then they're throwing all kinds of marketing on it, trying to make people buy their work instead of someone else's. Well, let me tell you something. When people buy an artist's work, it's about the art. It's not about marketing. What you need to be able to do if you want to create a successful career as an artist is you need to be able to consistently create work that gets the, oh my God, I love it, I have to have it reaction. And most of the work that's out there, quite frankly, it gets the, wow, this is nice, maybe this would look good in our house. And when you're one of many artists getting that kind of reaction, the clients are going to go to the one that's the best value, and that's the cheapest. So the key is not to focus on more marketing or more business solutions, it's to focus on the art. Until you are getting that over-the-top reaction, that, oh my God, I love it, I have to have it, and people actually lining up at your booth wanting to buy your work, until that happens, you have an art problem. And there's no amount of business solutions that can fix an art problem. So how do we fix the art problem? Well, you need to be able to create work that stands above the work of the rest of your competition. You need to be able to create work that people want to buy more than almost all of the other artists. And how do we go about doing that? Well, first of all, you need to understand something about the art world. And that's there's not one unified art world. There's like a bunch of different art villages out there, each one with their different gatekeepers, different rules, and different actually decision makers. And the biggest problem that I see with a lot of artists is they confuse the world of academic art. That's the work that you see in public institutions. That's what's taught in a lot of universities where postmodernism dominates. That's where it's all about the artist's meaning. What was the meaning you were trying to inject into the piece? Often, they don't want any skill. They don't value skill, craft, or beauty. These things are actually seen as actually less than great art. And in this world, who determines great art is like critics, curators for galleries. And this work is created to be talked about, to provoke outrage, or to provoke some sort of emotion, but it's not created with the intent that it's going to be hung in someone's home. Now, if you're trying to sell your art, you're in the village of commercial sales. That's art festivals, commercial art galleries, selling online or selling direct to clients. In this world, the rules are very, very different. First of all, despite 50 or 60 years of the academic kind of art intelligentsia pushing what I just talked about in the academic world, most of the art buying public still values all of the things that were very important in art since the Enlightenment. Things like skill, craft, beauty, mastery. Those are the things that people value if they're actually going to buy art to hang in their home. So how do we stand out in this village? Well, the very first thing you can do is work on mastering the skill. Things like drawing, things like composition, and then spending time in process mode, pushing your creativity until you can create work that shows mastery of technique, mastery of conceptual knowledge, and ideally with a unique voice that is instantly recognizable as being your work. And if you can do that in a way that creates work that the public gets engaged with, where they go, oh my God, I love it, I have to have it, then actually earning a living as an artist becomes very easy. Until or unless you can create work that consistently does this, it's virtually impossible. And even though I've had a very successful career and I'm very, very successful in business, I don't know how you can make a living as an artist when your work is just getting the, oh, that's nice, maybe that would look good over our couch kind of reaction. Because again, there's nothing that stands out about work that gets that kind of reaction. So instead of spending all your time posting on social media, doing more festivals, focusing on the business side of things, you should be back in your studio focusing on improving your art. And if you're doing festivals right now and you're not getting any sales, I would say you should spend at least the next year just focusing on improving your art, and then test the waters again and do a festival and see what the response is. But until you're getting that over-the-top response, there's no kind of business solutions that are gonna help you sell more of your art. You have an art problem. And until you fix that art problem, there's no business solution that can help you. Now, if you're interested in working with me in terms of fixing that art problem, then I can help you. That's why I created my online art academy, and there's several different options that you could take if you want to work with me. My highest level is actually my mastermind Hungry Artist community. That involves weekly live Zoom calls where I'll critique work, I'll answer questions, offer coaching advice. That also includes all of the courses that I have on my art academy, or you could buy one of the individual packages of courses for less than $200, which will give you all of the tools you need to actually, first of all, solve that art problem and then work on the business. And at the very least, you could take my color and composition course that is going to have you creating better, stronger paintings within a day or two. So regardless of whether you work with me or want to work with me or not, I just can't stress enough that until your work is getting that over-the-top reaction, you have an art problem. It's pointless to spend hours, dollars, any sort of effort on marketing because you cannot fix an art problem with business solutions. So if you're having trouble selling your work, the problem is your work. Spend the time back in the studio focusing on improving your work. And again, if you want to see the options available to work with me, you can just click on the link in the description below.